came through was emotional leader. And I don't remember who was speaking at the time, but I just remember asking these two women, I said, "Did you hear that?" And they shook their heads. They said no. And then I heard it again. I heard it twice, as if God didn't want me to make a mistake, or he didn't want me to talk myself out of receiving this true identity. Welcome to The Kindred Journey, the podcast for the spiritually curious, the wounded, the wandering, and the wildly awake, where nervous system healing meets spiritual transformation, and where your identity is something you receive, not something you earn. I'm your host, Lesley. You don't have to have it figured out to belong here. Now, take a deep breath. You're in the right place. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Kindred Journey podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. We're going to be talking about true identity today. And again, we've touched about false identities a little bit. This is not the identity you built to survive. This is the one that you were given before the world started telling you who to be. And I can't wait to get started. I feel like the version of me that was performing, the one that was capable, the one that looked like she had it all together, the one who never needed too much, I believed that that was who I was. I believed that that was my true identity. But what if who I truly was waiting underneath all of that the whole entire time? Not lost, never gone, just rediscovered. And that is what I have been doing over the last several years. And I want to start off with a story that occurred in spring of 2023. And again, this will be in the book as well. But it was the morning or the day that I received my true identity. And there was a book that was gifted to me around Christmas time of 2022, and I had not put it down since. And so this was, I think, March of 2023, where I was sitting at my friend's table, and I was probably mid or the end of this book, and it's called Living Fearless, and it's by Jamie Winship. And it's about exchanging the lies of the world for the liberating truth of God. And if you have not read this book yet, I am planting this seed for you today, because truly this book cracked open everything in me. And again, so much of where I am today is because of this book. And I, for weeks, had been sitting down in my chair with my Bible, with this book, with my devotional, ready to receive my true identity. And I had the box checked of ready to receive, right? I had my journal, my coffee, my silence and solitude in the morning. And again, I was going to do this right. I was going to hear from God and receive my true identity the good Christian girl way, perfectly, quietly, alone. And I would sit there, I remember, and I would say, "Okay, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to receive my true identity today. Who do you call me? Who am I?" But as God does in his very disruptive and loving way and gentle way, he had other plans for me. So this was a few weeks later after that. I was sitting at my dear friend's table, and I was not expecting to receive my true identity that day. And I think that's how God's a funny God, and he works in funny ways. And even though I was ready to receive, in my perfect posture to receive, it wasn't until this morning in the middle of community with two women I cherish to the end of time, and I love them so much. And it was in the middle of a conversation. It was in the middle of real life. It wasn't poised, and it wasn't perfect, and it wasn't like this. It was in community. And I think that's such a key piece for me, is that at the center of my community is how I received my true identity. And it didn't come subtly like God typically does. For me, it was loud and it was very prefrontal cortex. For me, it was clear, it was unmistakable, it was unshakable. It was a very deep voice, but it was very gentle. And what came through was emotional leader. And I don't remember who was speaking at the time, but I just remember asking these two women, I said, "Did you hear that?" And they shook their heads. They said no. And then I heard it again. I heard it twice, as if God didn't want me to make a mistake, or he didn't want me to talk myself out of receiving this true identity, because it was the first time I had really heard God's voice and experienced him in that way. And receiving my true identity the way I did was exactly how he intended to, for me to receive it, because it was in community. And again, one of the women sitting at this table, her name is Pam. She's an amazing mentor of mine. She gave me the book. And so I just think it is so interesting and so important that I share this with you, because I didn't receive my true identity perfectly prepared in my quiet time in the morning in presence with myself. I received it in community at a table, communing with these two women who could witness this with me. And again, I don't feel like that's by accident. I feel like that is exactly how God designed it to work for me. And I was really confused after receiving my true identity. I was scratching my head a little bit. I'm not going to lie, I went home and I Googled it. I wasn't sure how to receive it. I thought, interesting, okay. And honestly, I felt emotional leader. I've been through a lot lately. I feel like I've been wearing my emotions on my sleeve. I even Googled it when I got home, emotional leader. Nothing came up specifically to that. Some things with Brene Brown came up, but also felt too good to receive in a way. And I feel like, that voice of unworthiness was kind of creeping in a little bit. And we're going to talk about that today, because that voice has a name, and it is not the voice that delivers your true identity. It's a false one. And so many of us have been living inside of our false identities for a long time, and we've mistaken them as truth. So today I want to give you a little bit of a framework, or at least a few words, for what might be happening inside you. And again, not to ever put you in a box, because that's the opposite of what we do here at the Kindred Journey, but to give you a language for what maybe you've already been feeling, because clarity can reduce our shame. And naming something is the first step of being free of it. So we're going to move through some identity work, and we oftentimes lead with the wrong identity. And curious for you, how do you introduce yourself when you meet somebody new, or you're maybe dating and you're trying to find a partner or a husband, and you tell all of these qualities about yourself? Or maybe you are a part of a women's group, or you're meeting a new friend, or you're having a play date with another mom. What do you share about you first? And again, this is where a lot of us start with those external identities. And it could be what you do as an occupation, maybe what your relationship is to someone else. We oftentimes don't start with our internal identities, but more the things that we do, the roles we play, and the boxes that we try and fit ourselves into. And they're real, but they're not who you are to your core and who I am to my core. It's what we do. And there's a huge difference, because our knowing should inform our doing, not our doing. These external identities, qualifications, tasks should inform our knowing. So that's the difference between the internal and the external, or the false identities. We tend to identify ourselves through separation, through how we differ from others, maybe through our function, our performance, our religion. I know we talked about religion on a couple episodes back, but when any of these external identities can get threatened, maybe when the job ends, or the relationship fractures, or a role can shift, we don't just feel loss, we feel like we've lost ourselves. because we've built our whole sense of self on something that was never meant to hold that weight. And this matters because our true identity is not something that you do. It's something that you are supposed to receive, that you do receive. It's not constructed, it's uncovered, it's placed before you, and it's placed in you before you even took your first breath, before anyone had a chance to tell you who to be or who you are not supposed to be. And this is the journey of healing, real healing. I mean, largely the journey of finding your way back home to your true identity. Invitation to just let that pause and land with you and maybe see what is coming up for you. Maybe you felt you knew your true identity all along, or maybe you feel a sense of relief knowing that these external roles are not who you are. So yeah, maybe just invitation to notice sometime this week when somebody asks maybe to introduce yourself, or where do you reach first? What do you share about yourself first? And again, this is just information. We're not using this as for judgment. We're using this with love, grace, and compassion as a starting place. I want to take a moment and speak directly to you. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you already know that this work is not about having the right answers or following the right steps. It's about coming home to your body, to yourself, to who you actually are underneath everything that you have been carrying. I have opened an intimate amount of one-to-one coaching spaces, 12 weeks of deeply personal, somatic healing work that's built entirely around you and your season. No curriculum, no predetermined path, just sacred co-created space where your body leads and I hold the way. This is for the woman who has done the mindset work and still feels that something is unresolved. The one who knows something is ready to move, but does not quite trust it yet. If this is landing somewhere in your body right now, I want you to pay attention to that. The link to book a connection call is in the show notes. This is just a conversation. No pressure, no script. It's just us feeling out together whether this is your next step. I would be so honored to walk alongside you. Let's get back to the show. And our false identities, we talked a little bit about this earlier in one of the previous episodes, was limiting beliefs and the lies that we've lived is the source of our false identities. And maybe some of these loops, these limiting beliefs that maybe show up in your thought process might land for you. And I'm going to name them here in a second. But, our false identity is not something that we choose. It's something that is formed around our wounds. We talked a little bit about being brokenhearted and those survival strategies or patterns that we have come up with to survive. These come from experiences or maybe messages that you've received, oftentimes very early in life, about who you were and what you deserved. Other people's words putting you into these boxes. And some of the thought loops can sound like, I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I am too much, I'm not good enough, I have to earn my place, I'm a burden, I don't belong here. Any belief that is rooted in lack or scarcity, any belief that says there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that is a false identity, and it's a lie. And it comes from the enemy. Shame is a false identity. Guilt says I did something wrong, and shame says I am something wrong. And this distinction matters enormously. Brené Brown does a lot of her work around shame, and that's where that came from. But also, sometimes we have a wrong belief around God, and that leads to a wrong belief around yourself. And that manifests into a wrong behavior. And we're not fixing the behavior by trying harder. We go to the root. We go to the core wound, again, which is always this belief. And the belief is always about identity, about God's identity and about our identity. And if you believe God is harsh and withholding, maybe God is waiting for you to get it right before he accepts you, then of course you will believe you are not enough. Of course you will perform. And of course you will strive. But what about, entertain me for a minute. What about if your belief about God is wrong? What if he has never once looked at you and seen your failures first? What if God looks at you the way he looked at you before you ever did anything? Before you were even born? What if he looks at you with delight, with intention, with a specific identity already waiting for you to receive it? Invitation for you to allow God to inform your beliefs. Let him rewire what the world, the wound, and the enemy have told you about who you are. This matters because limiting beliefs are tied directly to your false identity. You will only live as large as you believe you are allowed to. And if you believe that you are not enough, you will shrink yourself to fit that belief over and over and over again. And it might be in some ways that you're not even conscious of. But when you're able to live in your true identity, the one that God gave you before the world got a hold of you, then nothing can stop you from the life and destiny that he designed you to discover. And I love that true identity is meant to be received. It cannot be achieved. And what would it maybe look like for you to focus on a receiving posture instead of a doing posture? Again, trying to achieve something and instead of compared to just being. This has been something the last few years that I have continued to grow in, but also pull back the layers and to go further, go deeper. You can't think your way to your true identity. You can't perform your way to your true identity. You cannot be good enough, quiet enough, disciplined enough, or spiritually mature enough to manufacture your identity. It is a gift. Your true identity is received. Similarly to mine was received in community. And this is the safest place in the presence of safe community to receive true identity. It's a gift. It was in a moment of stillness that I did not plan. I was not doing it perfectly. I wasn't trying to receive it or doing it right. I was just open. I was open to receiving. And I want to name something here. We're going to go deeper into this in an upcoming episode, but our belonging is completely wrapped up in our identity. And when we don't know who we truly are, when we're living from a false identity, we will always be searching for belonging in the wrong places. Trying to fit into spaces that we were never meant to be in, that were never meant to hold us. We were performing for acceptance that our true self never needed to earn. When you receive your true identity, belonging stops being something you chase, and it becomes something that you embody. So this is what I want to leave you here with today. It's not a 5-step plan. It's not boxes to be checked. It's just an open question with an open hand. What if the truest thing about you has nothing to do with what you've done or what's been done to you? What if it was waiting patient, unchanged, completely intact, underneath every false identity that you've ever worn? You don't have to receive it perfectly. Trust me, I've tried that. God showed up at a kitchen table instead. Just stay open. Invitation to be curious. And trust that He knows how to find you, and He will never stop pursuing you. Before we close, I want to give you something to carry with you. Take a breath. Maybe an inhale through the nose, audible exhale through the mouth. And just for a moment, set down everything that you do. Every role that you play, every title that you hold. Underneath all of that, underneath the doing and the proving and the performing, who is there? What is the most consistent voice that speaks about who you are? Is it a voice of lack? Not enough? Too much? Unworthy? Or is it something quieter, deeper, truer? You don't have to answer that out loud today, but I want you to get curious about it, because the journey to true identity begins with being willing to question the voice that you've been believing. You were made on purpose, with purpose, and an identity that God placed in you before the world got to you, and it is still there, waiting, patient, completely intact. And I hope you can let that be enough for today. If this episode stirred something in you, if you heard a false identity name today that you were carrying all these years without realizing it, I would love for you to share this with me. Feel free to DM me on Instagram or write me a 5-star review with maybe a false identity that came up, or send me an email. All the links are included in the show notes. And if you feel somebody would benefit from this episode today, would you please share this with her and let her know that she is not the wound told her she was? That share could be a breadcrumb that changes everything for her. And again, for the deeper work, if you want to continue with me on my journey on Substack, writing my book publicly as it unfolds, please come join me. The link is in the show notes. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you for meeting me here. If this episode met you somewhere real, the most generous thing that you can do is share it with one woman in your life who is wandering, curious, or quietly longing for more. She might not even know she's looking for this yet. And if you have a moment, leaving a 5-star review helps more women find their way to this space. And that is part of the healing too. I'll see you next Thursday.